Welcome. This is the fifth video in a series on making an ergo button for Vinod in India. And up till now, we've been creating this absolutely gorgeous button for a Seydel Saxony. And this video will deal in great depth with how to properly attach a button to a slide. I'm going to go slowly so that I can cover a lot of minutia and information you may find useful, and I hope that you enjoy it. So this is what the slide looks like, of course, and it has a nub. Okay, and that nub is what goes into the hole at the back of the button like that. And you can see that it kind of goes on like that. Okay? Now, one of the first things that I would say about attaching buttons to a slide is to be cognizant that they should fit pretty tightly. I personally feel that the button should be held pretty steadily by the slide nub, even without glue. And of course, the lower edge of the button should seat on the shoulder of the slide and not be up, like up a little bit, see? Where it's not really touching the shoulder anymore. See, it's not really touching. It's close. So, the first thing is fit. It's not easy to do. I can do it because I've got the lathe and I can drill the hole. You probably don't. It may be a little loose, it may not. So I'd say, your first thing is to kind of wipe this off. You certainly don't want to glue it with any oil residue on it. You can scratch that a little bit up there sideways if you want to increase adhesion, but I find that the epoxy, metal epoxy, which is what I use, is sufficient. This is JB Weld 2-part metal epoxy, and it's used for engine repairs. You can glue parts of an engine together and it'll hold. That's the product I use. Now, a lot of people use crazy glue. The problem with crazy glue is that it is very brittle when it hardens, and if you smack the slide on something, it'll just crack, just come right off. You can re-glue with crazy glue quite nicely, especially even with this JB Weld. If you pull it off, you can go ahead and re-glue it with crazy glue, but I don't use that as the principal glue. Okay, so why don't we get started with how to do this? And I would say wear gloves. You don't want to touch this stuff. And I've marked on the slide with a little dot where it goes in to the slide. The slide is marked as well with a little bit of marking on this edge. So let's just come down here in the workspace and do this together. 2-part epoxy is a chemical mix that makes a wonderful glue. And I'm going to take here and grab a small screwdriver that will mix the material and allow me to put it into the back end of the button. So you take your 2 elements here. And my apologies for the fact that I don't always give perfect camera angles for this. I need to hang it from the ceiling. You put that's part A, okay? It's gray. The other chemical here is part B. You use the same amount of both A and B approximately. One's black and one's gray. Put them back in the plastic and then that'll go back downstairs. Now, you can see that when you get some of this on your hand, you want to wipe it off because it will get onto your slide and it will get onto also, you know, other things too. So you can see how quickly you're going to make a piece of paper dirty with this chemical. And so now what I do, I just mix them together, okay, until they are completely mixed, okay, like that. And then I take the thing and wipe that off. Now the next task is to put the goop into the back end of the button. There's no fast way to do this. You just very gently come in and start shoveling it in. I think you can see this pretty well. You tap it and make sure that you break any airlocks so that it really does fill up entirely. You can see it will hold quite a bit, doesn't it? Okay, now I've got it pretty doggone full. You want to be careful when you're working with epoxy. Continue to clean things quickly, because as long as the stuff's wet, it's easy to work with, but once it starts hardening, it's not. Okay, then how do you go about cleaning something like the back end of this? Really, the easy way is just to scrape it on paper, okay? And then to get the side of the button, I can use the paper. Okay, so a lot of working with epoxy is about staying clean. Now we have to seat the two. And I told you that I had marked this. And unfortunately, as oftentimes happens, the marking has disappeared. So I can't do it that way. I'll just have to put it on and try and make it fit. Turn it around until I can get it on here in such a way where it does go all the way on. And this is one of the problems I have with this work, is that now I've got the button kind of stuck on and I've lost my orientation, and it may be difficult for me to find a spot where I can get this on to hold, and because it was so tight. And I'll turn it until I can find a spot where it seats, and there it did. Okay, so I did get it on, and it's on properly, but I had to kind of turn it. And then I come in here with this index card, and this is the easy way to do a cleanup with an index card. And you'll see that it is on there properly, absolutely seated. Okay, and I hold it up to the light. You can see the graceful curve from the shoulder to the button itself, and it is on there properly. So this is an example of a proper mounting. I have a little bit of residue in there, and I've got another thing I can use like this just to come in. So I always do it with paper. It's how I clean them up. Now the other thing is when you go to have it dry, you want to make sure you are aligned properly, and it is right now. They can be bent a small amount after completion. Now, another point is that if you're going to be struggling with the slide, and like if you have to try and push this on and tap it, you're gonna bend up the slide. So you want to cover it with 2 slats of wood, and then put electrical tape around the wood to hold this if you're going to be working it a lot. In this case, I just could hold it here and go like this. But if I were going to be working with it more, I would have put small pieces of wood that are about as big as this slide itself on both sides, and then wrapped it with electrical tape here and here. I didn't have to here because I wasn't doing much other than just grabbing it up here and twirling this a little. But so basically what you've done is you've created a fully filled plug here. Now the next thing we're going to do, and I'm going to just bring the camera, it has to be put somewhere where it can be stable as it dries, and I'll show you what I use, which works very, very well, which is a book. And I just slide it into the book, okay, like that. And the pages hold it up. and it's up in the air. And then you want to come and check your alignment. Is it perfect? And it is. Now, if the button was not on there really tight, then I would lock it with Scotch tape, wrapping it around the top and bringing it down on the sides of the slide and make sure it was aligned properly, and then check it a couple times while it was drying. But this one, it was tight on there. You want to be careful, though, by the way, with these pieces here that have goop on them, you want to pick this stuff up and get it into the trash somewhere where it will not air and vent into your home immediately. So you don't want to leave these chemicals sitting, drying in your home. Get them out of the house. Then here I just threw them in the garage. So you've got that safety concern. And at this point I can come over and I'm going to pull the plastic gloves and throw them away. I'm done with them now. Okay, so, but let me just recap some of the issues that you've got. You want to make sure that the button, the lower edge of the button, does seat onto the shoulder of the slide, and that it's not just held by the tine. The tine's not big enough to take the pressures, but the shoulder is. You have fast play. You use 2-part metal epoxy, 2-part metal epoxy, and fill it in the way I showed, and you shape it with the paper, and then you let it dry for about 10 hours, and it's not coming off. You can get them off if you work at it, but you have to have a method that does that. That's another video. But anyway, that's how you attach a button. In this case, the Kettlewell ERGO button, comfortable at all angles of attack. And may I show you what it'll look like when it's done? This is one of the Deibel harps here. It is a little punk. And there's the button, comfortable at all angles of attack. And harps available by Deibel or at mastersofharmonica.com. I hope you enjoyed this series. And Vinod, I really hope you enjoy your ERGO button.